What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome back to another weekly review. I hope everybody's doing well, and let's get straight into things. So we're going to start on the DXY on the monthly just to see where we're at. We do finish the month of February this week, which is interesting, and we do have a lot of high impact news every single day, so I am expecting a lot of volatility in general, but you'll see we're still just pacing around this fair value gap on the monthly, which I was anticipating price to want to trade completely into. So my bias in general is still bullish because price should still be seeking to trade it inside of this, so that remains the same. And yeah, let's drop down to the weekly and get a better look. So last week we had a down close week, but what you'll find is that we traded quite deeply down into this bearish order block, which should now be providing support. So if we drag this out like so, actually we'll get the volume off it, you'll see how price traded down into that and closed above the 50% level and pretty much above the order block in general. Now this is classic price action. It tends to use previous order blocks bullishly on the buy side of the curve, so we anticipate price to want to be creating this kind of consolidation and return to on the way up. So moving into the new week, I am expecting this bearish order block from December to now be providing support for the new week. So what we can look at is we can look at the wick that was created last week, and we can mark out the 50% level of that. If price is to remain bullish, price should respect this midpoint, because that's what we call consequent encroachment. So I'm going to get that delineated right now, and we'll see how price trades around that level this week. Preferably, I'd like to think that we can find support there and then trade aggressively higher, running into last week's high and the week before that's high as well as a potential target. Now, if price does give way to this level, as in if we trade through it on the downside, then my bias will likely change and would have to start thinking about what sell side PD arrays price may be trading to. But overall, I am still bullish, and a lot of that is supported by the fact that we've looked at the commitment of traders report, and also we anticipate February's to trade higher based off previous data in general. So let's get that marked out. We'll make that dashed. And another thing to take note of is this weekly fair value gap as well. So I'm going to get that drawn out. Now this weekly fair value gap should provide support. What's nice to see is the fact that last week closed above it, and I'd like to think that this week will also find support on top of it. Now, like I said, price can wick through it, and that is fine and probably very likely as well. But eventually I do want to see price use this level to act as a springboard for price to trade higher. So let's go to the daily, and then you can see that same weekly fair value gap has been translated down, and you'll see on Thursday and Friday we had two up close candles, again wicking through that fair value gap, but overall closing above it. That 50% level, the 50% level on the weekly is pretty much the 50% level of Thursday's trading, which traded right down into this bullish order block, by the way, right here. So that was nice to see last week. Traded down, touched it, and had a nice bullish reaction off of it, again suggesting that price is should want to now trade higher and look for bullish PD arrays to reach. Another thing, we have a volume imbalance up here, so in terms of buy side targets, we can draw that out as a target for price in the new week. So let's get that green, and then we know that we have all of these highs: Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Mondays, and the week before that. All of these swing highs are going to be used as reaches for buy side liquidity in the new week. Now if we go down to the 4 hour, we can get a closer look, and you'll see how price turned around at around that 50% level, wicking down again into that massive liquidity void. The 50% level of it, to be specific, I'll show you what I mean. And the fact that we traded right to the 50% level, again, is showing bullish behavior. And we closed above the 25% level, which is even better. So these are all bullish signatures in price that we like to see. And then you can see this massive green candle that traded right through and closed above this swing high, again suggesting there's been a shift in the market that should now be hunting for buy stops. Let's go to the 1 hour, and you can see price a little bit better. Now, like I said, price can trade back down to this 50% level, and it very well may do. The reason for that as well, we have this swing low and this swing low coupled together creates relative equal lows. So that means there's going to be south side liquidity residing below there, and that would create a nice low of the week this week. So we can get that drawn out. And there's a bullish order block down here as well, which should propel price if it's reached. So definitely keep an eye on this swing low and anticipate this getting taken some point this week before we see a continuation to the upside. We can even go down to the 15 minute to get a closer look. You'll see the relative equal lows here and here. And again, you can see there's bullish order blocks that have formed here and here. So when price trades into them, if we are bullish, which I do believe we are, considering we've had a nice break in market structure, price should then push through higher. So all of this now that we're seeing, this back and forth price action throughout Friday, I do believe this is simply consolidation. And I'd like to think that in the new week, we can come down, create the low, and start hunting for buy stops after that. I am going to go to the 1 minute as well, just to show a very specific level. And it's going to be the last up close candle before the down move that we witnessed last week. So this move here from this low up to this high was like the last bullish move that we saw before all of this downside price delivery. And then obviously we got a high here and here. And then once we trade through these levels, price should turn bullish. But one thing to take note of is this happened at that weekly 50% level. So again, when price returns to these levels, we should anticipate that price wants to use them again as a springboard to push price higher and run for buy side liquidity. So that's just something to take note of, and it's nice to see that it's lined up again with our higher time frame PD arrays. So that's everything on dollar. I hope that all makes sense. Now let's go on to GBP. So here we are on GBP, and similarly to dollar, I see this fair value gap as a draw on liquidity for price to trade down into. So we are still bearish on GBP. On the weekly, you can see we had quite an aggressive week trading higher, and we traded into this rejection block level. Now, I am expecting last week's high to get taken on GBP purely because I don't believe it has the weakness not to reach for this. So if that's the case, then I'm going to simply be looking at the 25% and 50% level of this wick right here. So I'm going to get the 50% level drawn out, and that will be the very highest I want to see price trade on GBP before I expect, until I would change my bias or consider higher prices. So let's go to the daily. And you can see our price has been pushing its way up. We took out this swing high, and like I said, we are moving very close to that midpoint I was speaking about. On the daily, we also have a fair value gap right down here. And once price does eventually trade through this, I'd like to think that you can use this as resistance to push lower and run for these swing lows below here and potentially below here. But first, like I said, some kind of manipulation needs to happen in the week, and I would not be surprised if price wanted to create the high, running out last week's high first, and then start to move lower. Let's go to the 4 hour, and you'll see how price has just been stepping its way up, filling in this massive imbalance. Now, the fact that we have this massive imbalance is completely fine for price to trade and fill that in. It's just, you can see it's doing it in a very, very high resistance manner, as in it's taking its time to get up there. And yeah, that's what I mean. We can anticipate price to continue to fill this imbalance, and that 50% level you see lines up perfectly with the bearish order block that started the move. So even if we do trade up and fill this imbalance, the fact that we have the bearish order block here on the 4 hour adds to our confluence as to why we want to see lower prices. Let's go to the 1 hour. And again, very consolidated price action, but I want to see if price can reach up above these swing highs and find resistance at this level. So yeah, it's just a matter of waiting this week, I think, and then once price gets to these levels, we want to see, okay, does price want to continue to trade through it and trade higher, or are we getting the resistance we need? Because preferably we'd get a nice strong reaction off of this level, and then we can look for a breaker to short on, expecting a run down into all these swing lows that we've created. So that's my expectations on GBP. Let's drop down to the 15 minute. And again, you can see how last week traded, came down, trading higher, and in general, we are bullish, as in price is likely going to want to reach for this high I was talking about. But it's just a matter of waiting to see what price does once we get to that 1.274 level. Finally, let's finish on Euro USD. We'll go on the monthly, and let me get rid of everything. And you'll see, again, there is a fair value gap here on the monthly. Price has traded through to it already on Euro, but I would like to see price trade into it properly. And when I say properly, I mean I want to see volume within it and not just a quick reaction off of it. So I am still expecting lower prices on Euro. And then Euro, I wouldn't want to see take out last week's high. So this is where the SMT divergence comes in, as in pound, I'm okay with it taking out last week's high, but preferably Euro should not. And if that's the case, Euro should then respect the 50% level of last week's wick. So let's get that drawn out right there. And you'll also see there is an inversion fair value gap similar to dollar right here. So price, once it trades through that, we should anticipate it to act as resistance to propel price lower. So we'll get that drawn out in red, and now we can drop down to the daily. So you'll see that weekly midpoint also lines up with the daily midpoint, which is completely fine. And just one thing to take note of, if price does trade through it and we find support on this level, that is completely fine, and we'll simply start hunting for like this fair value gap up here with a potential reach all the way into these highs. But until that happens, as in until this high gets taken, I'm going to remain with my bias. Now let's go down to the 4 hour, and you'll see that that weekly level also lines up with a rejection block. So, and we also have a swing high here. So the way I'm looking at this is, okay, how could the week deliver so that we have some kind of manipulation, which will be us taking out the highs, and then an expansion, which will be us moving to the downside. And this frames it all perfectly, especially with dollar in support of that. You can see there's another bearish order block here on the hourly, again resting above these highs, and there is what we call an implied fair value gap right here. So price may want to seek to trade inside of that. Let's get that drawn out in blue, and we can go down to the 5 minute. You can see all this consolidation, and you'll also see a breaker, and the breaker here is a high, low, higher high, and then price is delivered to the downside. So this is the last down close candle before that up move. If we draw out the low of that, that should be a target for price. Now, assuming price does respect it. So what we're going to do this week, I'm going to wait. Does price want to take out the buy stops? If it does, how is it going to react once it reaches this level? If we have a nice reaction off of it, we can start looking for shorts for the rest of the week. If we trade through it and find support, then we should start looking for potential longs into this high and other highs. But yeah, that's everything, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.